Is there anything in regards to being a rich friend and helping somebody else out?
I don't know where we got it from. People be counting on people's pockets. Like if you got it and I need it, you owe me. And that's weird.
What exactly is friendship? I don't know that a person that I call my friend could see me down and out and not at least offer.
B. Simone is the type of chick that will take her friends out and pick out ones she's really not cool with and bully. And to me, B. Simone was not a friend. So there was recently a clip where I believe her name is Shekinah, where she was speaking about her friendship with B. Simone and how B. Simone, when she was financially up and Shekinah was financially down and struggling, that B. Simone didn't help her out. She didn't throw no change her way. But at the same time, she was actually throwing change to folks who didn't actually need any type of money or need any type of assistance. And so, but may have wanted her care and her money anyways. And so with that being said, I'm just curious in regards to what do you think about this whole revelation, so to speak, between Shekinah and B. Simone? Was B. Simone obligated to help her friend who was down and out? And was there some sort of pride or sense of pride for Shekinah never to ask her? Like, was her expectations wrong that her friend was supposed to look out for her? I'm just curious. Is there anything in regards to being a rich friend and helping somebody else out?
All right. So I want to slow this down for a second. And I want to say just very succinctly that sometimes the boundary is the blessing. And here's what I mean by that. Everybody's dragging B. Simone. Like loyalty should override limits. But what if the real conversation is about the boundaries and that boundaries doesn't mean betrayal? And what I mean by that is sometimes the loudest stories, they're still incomplete. Everybody's talking about, oh, she didn't do this for her friend. But the bigger story to me is, yeah, we see Shekinah's pain, and it's valid. You know, she went through some struggle. But we don't know B's position. We don't know what she was dealing with at the time. Maybe she'd given before and gotten burned. Maybe she's holding space without holding the bills. Maybe she learned the hard way that sometimes helping the friends means not enabling the cycle, right? If I give you a fish, you eat for a day. I teach you to fish, you eat for life, right? We talk about friendship equity, but equity isn't always financial. There are other ways you can be a friend. Sometimes it's emotional support. Sometimes it's believing in your friend without bailing them out, so they can learn the lesson and not have to circle back through it. And sometimes it's stepping back so they can step up. There's a really dangerous expectation in our culture. I don't know where we got it from. People be counting on people's pockets. Like if you got it and I need it, you owe me. And that's weird because survival doesn't equal obligation. We're all here to make it. And yes, I can help you if I choose to help you, but it's not part of my story to make sure your story goes on. Because then what was the point of my story? Who's in charge of making sure my story goes on? She had to carry her own weight. You know what I'm saying? So just because somebody has access doesn't mean they have the capacity to carry you. Maybe B wasn't ghosting her friend. Maybe she was protecting her friendship that would have been crushed if she gave that lady that money and then went left. Because we've all seen it. Money gets involved and suddenly love turns into resentment. People start ducking you, not answering your calls. Now you're not just a friend, you're an ATM with memories, or at worst, you're a bill collector they don't want to talk to. So yes, public compassion should match your private loyalty. I agree. If you like that out in the streets, you should be like that with your inner circle. I agree. But private loyalty also means knowing when not to give, when it's not wise, when you don't have it, when it's not healthy, when it's not good for your friendship, when it's not helpful. And that takes maturity. That's not malice. So my bottom line is that helping isn't always a handout. Real friendship isn't about showing up every time with money in their hands. It's about knowing how to show up without losing yourself. If B. Simone said no, maybe that was her way of staying a friend and not failing a friend. So I'm with her. I do the same thing. I got a little budget. And after my little friend emergency fund budget is gone, that's it. Everybody's got to wait for next month. I'm so sorry. Somebody got here before you. You know what I mean? But I can't tap me out trying to bail you out because I got people who still depend on me.
I don't know a lot about B. Simone, but she has a very sketchy track record as it relates to people that she calls her best friends. So I want to, because she's not famous enough for me to really make this about her necessarily, right? She was famous enough for this to be a topic because what this topic to me was about the expectations that you have amongst friends. especially when maybe one friend elevates financially and maybe the other friends did not. Right. I think that's an interesting conversation to have. So, I think, if Shekinah, whatever her name is, I thought it was dope that they was able to have the conversation, because sometimes you don't really get to see people's ugliness for real, for real. And if you really were looking, you'd be able to see B. Simone show hers. And I think she's shown that side of her. So while people like her, there's a part of her that people don't like because the way she came across, it's tone deafness. There are other parts of the conversation, or how burdenous it was for her not to be able to shop at one store. Now she has to shop at H&M, Crimea River type of shit, right? And so I just do think that there was ways that I just would not see her and say, that's a good friend. You know what I'm saying? I just wouldn't. I think the larger conversation starts with friends. How many of us have them? It's a cool song, but the song kind of intimates that they're not in abundance. Later on, we have a song that says, no new friends, which is an interesting thing to me because I think we overestimate how many friends we really have for real, for real. And so sometimes you realize that and you're in that position of no new friends and you're kind of stuck in this weird place. I think I know a little something about that, right? Because what exactly is friendship? If I was down and out, and I think my pride would probably get in the way, for sure. I know that for a fact, right? But a person that I called my friend did do anything to help me, and they were completely aware that I was down and out. Not that I would necessarily expect it, or maybe I would. Maybe that's the semantic part, because if friends mean X to me, and then this happens and there's no X, does that mean you're really my friend? I don't know. So I think it starts with how you define a friend for real, for real. So we use that word so loosely. I don't know that a person that I called my friend could see me down and out and not at least offer, even if I said no. You know what I'm saying? Even if it wasn't financial. I just don't know that I would see that person as a friend. So it's weird because I can't say expect it, because in my friendships, I don't expect a lot of shit from people just in general. I'm not that kind of person who leans on people financially and otherwise, right? So I wouldn't necessarily expect it in that way. I guess I would be disappointed because it would reveal something to me that maybe I didn't see before, because I'd have to really wonder. Now, the question becomes, does the person have it? And I guess in B. Simone's case, as being a public figure, it's easier to say, oh, well, clearly you had it, you can clearly see I'm down. So I get where Shorty's coming from, and kudos to her for working through that friendship with her to remain friends. But I think it starts with, what do you define as friends? And so what I would suggest for people to do is we just find another word. Everybody doesn't have to be your friend, right? They can be associates. We cool. That's my peeps, my homie. Maybe we find a different word that's commiserate with the type of relationship you have. You kick it. You talk every now and then. When shit is great, you have a good time, right? But for me, being a little bit old school, part of my friendship definition includes when we're down. There's like a subchapter where I guess I do have expectations then, right? For my friends to show up a certain type of way. So I guess there you have it, right? I do expect my friend. Now, what it looks like may vary. And as a person who moves a certain type of way, I do also understand that people don't have it sometimes. So Jay, if that was the case in her case, you would hope that a friend would understand that you didn't have it, but that doesn't mean that you still can't show up as a friend. And if you're really your friend, you'd find other ways to show up. At least that's maybe what my definition of a friend looks like. Now, on the flip side, I do understand that people be watching podcasts, don't know what the fuck is going on exactly, right? So I agree with you there. But when I heard her talk in that clip, it sounded like somebody who was really discussing how her friend was not really there for her. And it didn't necessarily have to show up a certain type of way. And then there was other parts of the clip that really made me question whether they were friends for real, for real. And don't even get me down the road of how women pretend to be friends when everything is all good, but the minute that something breaks up or shakes up, it's a problem all of a sudden, right? Fuck that bitch, right? So we've seen it from girls' trips where girls be getting killed, when friendships gone awry, right? So it's not like the whole idea of women being besties to me sometimes is tenuous at best. So ladies, if you're watching, I would be careful about the expectations that you have with your girlfriends. Or at least the ones you think are friends, because you'll be surprised when they show you that they're not the type of friends that you thought they were. And then you have a choice to make in terms of whether or not you want to remain friends. And one thing about getting older for me is I'm getting a chance to really look at things clearly and redefine or define them for myself. And I think if we're all kind of on that path, there are certain things you outgrow. And sometimes that includes, you guessed it, friendships. So I do think there are expectations to have. Because I think by defining the relationship in the first place, inherently, there is going to be some level of expectation. And I just think that in this particular case, she let her friend down. And I would no way, shape, or form ever want to be with somebody like P. Simone. Or at least I wouldn't call her my friend. Now, if I was just fucking, shit, maybe I'm leeching off her because I'm a fuckboy or some shit. Okay, cool, that's open. But she couldn't be my bestie. She damn sure couldn't be somebody I call a friend for real, for real. But S&M, you're a woman. right?
Yeah,
Out here
I want to speak
navigating
from
these
the
treacherous women's streets. Did I say something wrong that you
no,
disagree
as
with?
a matter of fact, you're batting two on this episode because I agree with this wholeheartedly. And to me, B. Simone was not a friend. And I'm going to tell you why she wasn't a friend. If you actually listen to a lot of what Shekinah, what she stated in regards to the piece that people seem to miss is the fact that she said that she was giving it to people who didn't even need it or want it or ask for it. She was just giving it out, like, here, you get some money, you get some money. And if she's doing this in front of her friend, or her supposed friend, her alleged friend, who she know is clearly suffering, clearly struggling, she could have did that shit outside of her face. You know what I'm saying? She didn't have to be so generous in front of her if she wasn't going to be generous with her friend, right? Because what she said was that she's watching her do all this for other people who wasn't in the same position that she was in. And she was like, that's interesting. And then she cycled through it and was like, you know what? There's no expectation. I shouldn't expect her. And then because she suffered from the strong, independent Black woman stereotype that we internalize to our detriment, she was like, I got too much pride because I'm supposed to be the strong, independent Black woman, so I can't even ask for the money. But at the same time, she's still watching her so-called friend give other people money. And that she can have her own reasons because it is her money. She can give it to whoever the hell she want to give it to. And that's a fact. I'm not trying to say she should have been pocket watching, but it made her feel some type of way to watch this because she was calling her bestie, not just her everyday friend, not an associate, not an acquaintance, not a person who she ran on the street, strangers that she say hi and bye to. She called her a bestie. And you're telling me you're going to let your bestie suffer? You gonna see your bestie in this situation and you're not even going to try in any shape, way, or form to help her. She could have been like, yo, let me babysit the kids while you go out. It don't have to necessarily be financial, but it made it sound like she didn't help her at all. She just watched from outside and observed. And so B. Simone is the type of chick to me that will take her friends out and pick out one who she really not cool with and bully. That's what it seemed like. Like the woman who ended up dead, who she thought she was hanging out with her friends, and they came back to the States and Mexico, and they came back, and it turned out that they weren't friends because they were jealous of her for making X amount of dollars, right? Or the same people, remember the case where the Black woman went to a sleepover? Now, that has some racial connotations and so forth, but the Black woman who went to a sleepover with all these white folks who she thought was her friend, and she ended up dead at a sleepover because they weren't her friends. B. Simone gave me that energy when she was talking about that. When Shekinah was talking about, I'm seeing her do this for other people. I'm seeing her do this. And no, she shouldn't have to do it for me per se, but it would have been nice if she would have offered. It would have been nice if she would have thought about it. It would have been nice that if she was doing, providing, but it wasn't a requirement because B. Simone didn't see her as a friend. As a matter of fact, B. Simone probably was like, yo, this is somebody who I can lord over my money and make her feel some type of way because I ain't helping her out in any shape, way, or form. Let me provide this emotional support so she can say, well, I'm there for you emotional. And then while she at the same time talking about, I went from shopping at XYZ to H&M. It was like, oh, okay, well, your friend was probably shopping at the dollar store because she had them kids and she couldn't do nothing. And you bemoaning about the fact that I understand your circumstances changed. So as a woman, I would say definitely be cautious of who you call your friends because sometimes those friends have that envious spirit. Sometimes those friends have the spirit of where they really want you to be jealous of them because they don't want you to be successful. You also have friends who walk around who say they're your friend, but in reality, they're trying to steal who you are because they want to really be you. And therefore they sabotage it along the way. And then you have friends who, like you mentioned this, and that's why I'm surprised you said this, Jay, because you mentioned this somewhere else where you was like, women have friends who they have, or maybe that was you, Nick, I don't know, where they have like 4 cute girls and then they have the ugly duckling, right? Or they have, who said it? I can't. Yeah, that's what I thought. So I was surprised because women will purposely have an ugly duckling so they look better next to that person. So how we know Shekinah was not her ugly duckling, who she wanted to make sure that she looked better next to. And that's the energy she gave. I'm saying we don't, but that's the energy she gave. So she wasn't a friend.
You can't feel entitled to something you were too proud to ask for.
I agree with that part. That's why I say her pride, that strong, independent Black woman held her back in that case because she should have been like, yo, I need some assistance.
I disagree with that.
Go ahead.
Really?
I disagree with that. I don't listen, I'm not a strong, independent Black woman, but I'd be loath to have to ask people for shit. Sometimes you do got to figure it out, especially if you feel like you're accountable and you're the one that put yourself in that position. I think there's different cases where I'm not going to push back on her for not asking. right? Because I'm just saying I don't want to call that a strong, independent black woman trope, because there are men and other people who would feel the same way. Pride is just pride. Like, I'm not going to ask people for shit. I don't put myself in this position. I'm going to deal with it. And apparently she did deal with it to a certain extent, well enough to kind of come back on the other side and be able to have this real conversation. So I'm just pushing back on this idea that it had to be like the strong, independent black. I do agree. Go ahead, Jake. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm saying B. Simone is not the culprit here. Her pride is the culprit. If she had expressed her need to her friend when she saw money was going out, her friend was in a position to give money out, and her friend was like, "Nah, I can't do it, girl. I just gave $5,000 to somebody else." That's a different thing, right? But we got to stop holding people accountable for unexpressed expectations. You know what I mean? It's just not fair. We all have a best case scenario or how we want things to go. We all have these happy endings in our head, our druthers of how we wish people would behave. But if you don't express that to them, even if they're in a capacity to help you, if you haven't expressed the need, you can't fault them for not being mind readers or for not just sewing into your situation just so you could turn around later on and go, "I didn't ask you to," because people will do that. You know what I mean? And you'll turn around and give your last trying to be a friend, only to find out that person really isn't your friend. They just thought they were they actually were a parasite or whatever. And then all this giving that you did, all this selflessness, they turn around and go, "I didn't ask you to do that. You did it for you." So I completely understand waiting for somebody to tell me that they need my help sometimes before I help. So then I know my help is appreciated. I know I can move in the space I need to move in. Because sometimes I feel like I step forward to help people and I'm in the way. I'm out of pocket. They already had a plan to do it this way. Or, you help them and they do something else with the money. So, nah, I
So I,
hear it. Go
I
ahead.
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Okay, so I understand what you're saying because I think open communication is key to all friendships, relationships in general. And I think that people shouldn't make assumptions, right? Because the assumptions or carry these silent burdens and so forth, it doesn't help foster positive bonds. But what I think you're missing is the fact that she said she watched her. Like she was doing it on purpose, give it to people who didn't ask. It was just like,
I
oh,
don't
here
think
you
it's that
go. Let me
specific,
drop.
SNL. I'm sorry.
Huh?
No.
I didn't take it that specifically. I think when she said she watched people, it's kind of like if she was on social, because B. Simone is a public person. If she saw her on social doing stuff, she might have been like, "Oh, I watched her do this." I don't think she was there specifically at the time.
Mm.
But I want to kind of take it off of B. Simone a little bit because, I mean, honestly, I do think there's enough evidence to suggest she's not the best of friend, right? She's not the best friend to have. I don't want to argue it about her. But I do think there's a conversation in regards to expectations and friendship, which is the part that I was trying to kind of stay on because, like, for example, if you're in a friendship with both y'all, matter of fact, all of us, right? We're all friends, we all kicking it, right? At some point, depending on if you have certain friendships, if one of us become a millionaire tomorrow, would that change any expectation beyond just asking for money, right? Maybe like if we go out together, do we have an expectation to change? Let's say as the rich friend, I want to do things that now that I'm able to do. Can you do them with me? Can we talk about maybe how there's a shift in friendship, I guess, based off of finances? Or, as a last like round of this conversation, right? Or because the other part of the conversation that to me would be a deeper conversation, and Jay, this is the part that I think SNM was getting to, and I'll just say this and then we can pivot just real quickly, is that there's inherently, we all talk about challenges in women's relationships, right? The shit goes deep, bro, in ways that I think men just need to really understand. Sometimes the surreptitious nature of friendships, the connivingness, the backstabbing, the jealousy, like we know that when we joke about it, but I don't think we really understand the depths. And watching B. Simone to me was someone that exposed some of that in real time. Shorty said, I called B. Simone about an opportunity that I got that she had, I guess, cultivated on her own. I guess B. Simone couldn't be happy for her. They hung up the phone, hey, I'll call you back. Then she had to call the girl back to tell her the reason why she couldn't be happy for her friend, right? And part of that kind of expressed this person who couldn't just genuinely be happy for a friend and because it wasn't something that she presented. It wasn't something that she could be a part of. There was a lot of ego sometimes. So we don't know these people enough to say that, but I do think there is a conversation to be had about the treachery, I think, that women face in girls in friendships amongst each other, especially when they throw around the word bestie, like everybody's that, when in truth, seldom anybody's that, especially when you look at their immediate friend circles, right? But the question I was going to ask, because I do think there is some relations to this part of it is, if your friend comes up, you guys are close and everything like that, do you have expectation to kind of go along on that ride with your friend, right? Like if y'all was kicking it, y'all was, rolling together and all of a sudden your friend is doing their thing, and like taking trips and traveling or whatever, right? Do you have some level, or is it wrong to have some level of expectation that maybe you'd be a part of that in some way, shape, or form?
I think it's wrong to expect that just because your friend is going places that they're going to take you. I think because they could take anybody, right? And they probably have other people that they have to take. I think it's great if they take you. I think it's flattering. I think it's probably going to be a better experience for both of y'all if you're along for the ride. But I think it's on them to bring you along for the ride. And I think if they're going places that you can't afford to go, then yeah, they should pay for you if they're inviting you to those places, right? But also if they're going places you can't afford to go and they, for whatever reason, haven't budgeted to take you, I don't think that's flaw on them. I feel like what I owe my friends when I'm successful is to try to find ways for them to be successful, or even try to find places for them in my success, but not just to bring them along because I'm going and hey, I want you to come. I mean, that's great. I can do that, but I don't owe anybody that. I only owe I only owe consideration and love and respect. And everything else I give is a blessing and a boon. So yeah, I make it. I'm gonna try to put all my friends on. I'm gonna try to find jobs for everybody where they're not being paid by me. We all making money. That's the plan. But just because I blow up, I got lots of people I'm close to, but I'm not taking them with me everywhere I go when I'm a millionaire or whatever. For why? I'd be like MC Hammer. He's the greatest, I think, lesson for that.
Take it
Like
back.
Hammer put everybody on his back, and then they wore him down, and then he couldn't support anybody anymore. It's not everybody's back in the same position they were in because they just kept draining Hammer, and he kept trying to support everybody, but one person can't do that.
So it's actually interesting because I was going to bring up MC Hammer as the worst case scenario because those people who he was supporting was not really his friends, right? Because he put the whole neighborhood on his back, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's the difference. Like people like Luda or LeBron who had their friends come and support them because they made them the chef or they gave them manager positions and so forth. I think that's the more appropriate route. And so as somebody who has friends who actually do make way more than I do, is one of those things where I don't expect them to do anything for me. As a matter of fact, if I get an opportunity to be in the same room, like sometimes they're like, hey, I need you to come to this event and you can meet some people for networking purposes or whatnot, right? And I'm like, oh man, cool. I'm excited. I'm thankful and so forth. And so it's one of those things where I'll get in where I fit in. There's no expectation for me to do so, for them to uplift or pull me or any of that. I'm just thankful when they do and they think like that. I personally, though, because of who I am, my first thing is going to be like, hey, let me see how I can put you on. Let me see how I can extend my circle to bring you into where I'm at because I want you to succeed just like I'm succeeding, especially if you're not succeeding. Now, there becomes a point where you may have to recognize you need to cut somebody off because they're not doing what they need to do to stay within the group. I'll put it like that. When I say group, I mean as far as that exploratory grinding and so forth, right, to get where they need to go. And so, but that's just me personally. As a matter of fact, I had somebody ask me, like, what if you won the lottery? What would you do? And the first thing I was like, I thought about all the people who I wanted to contribute and give money to just for the purpose of uplifting them because I know they have business plans. They're trying to get that off the ground, but they don't have that. So the investments, opportunities that I'm looking at, if I was to ever win the lottery or whatnot, you know? And so, but I think that expectation still needs to be defined, but there's no real expectation for folks to say, oh, where I'm at, you're at. It'll be nice. Thanks. And but that's just me, you know.
I hear y'all. I hear y'all. I hear y'all. I don't know. I want to say I agree with y'all. Especially as a person, like if you're talking about like, money stuff, like I don't have expectations of other people. For period. It's full stop. But I'd be lying though if I feel like there wouldn't be some expectations in some way, shape, or form. I hear what y'all saying because it sounds like, we don't expect shit from anybody. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Like for example, let's say like if you had a friend and they were having a big event, right? Even if that person genuinely did invite you because they didn't think you could afford it, you might still have had the expectation of being invited. So what I'm saying is that I get that I feel like there is a scenario where I could see having an expectation of a friend who happens to be rich, and it could be that the transition changes the expectations before you're aware of it. And then it's also like a new journey for both sides necessarily, right? Because I find it hard, like if I'm a person and I think, man, as soon as I get balling out, I'm bringing everybody with me. I get that y'all differentiated between, I'll give you opportunities, and I get that you have to have some separation because you can't give everybody an opportunity. You brought up the hammer example. But that's also different than literally bringing people with you. Like for example, Woody. He's one of the first people I know that the minute it's gone and popping, I'm literally bringing him with me. I got stuff that we can do together. period. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know I literally actively reach out, try to connect with and build just on the business shit. But I'm saying once I literally get into the position, you have to fuck up to get outside of my grace to a certain extent. Like, that's my mindset. Because number one, I have a limited number of people I can trust. So again, I'm saying as a person who moves that way, would I have no expectation for other people? I don't expect a 1-to-1 ratio. But again, if I call you my friend and I know this is how I show up as a friend, where's the reciprocity, right? Because I'm going to just show up as my everything and give you everything and not have any expectation whatsoever. So I hear y'all. But I just think as human beings, inevitably, we do tend to have expectations for relationships that we define, for those that, especially those that we care about. And I notice because people be having expectations that are outsized, unfounded, and they have no basis whatsoever, but they still have them. So it's like, you know what I mean? So I hear y'all, but I just think that it's fair for people to have. Now, how you respond to those expectations or the unspoken expectations, how you deal with it. And that's why I kind of bring it full circle before we get up out of here and with some final thoughts is the fact that these two young ladies were having the conversation is the kudos that I would give to them, and probably more so on Shekinah's side, I guess, because she was being open about what she had went through. I think it's easier to do, obviously, after you've gone through it. But these conversations aren't probably happening enough. And when they do happen, it gives the person an opportunity to really know whether or not they were really friends in the first place. And I think because like, it may not be money. It just shows up in other ways. I expected that my friend would support me this way, then they don't. I expected they would show up for me in this way, then they don't. Let alone if they actually take actions to purposefully not do so, right? So
Facts.
I think when it comes to people you call your friends, even the rich ones, right? Even the poor ones, you're going to have some level of expectations. And I think it's going to be hard sometimes to navigate between whether or not those expectations are rooted in funds or finance or whatever. But I hear y'all.